Okay, I'm gonna run through some advanced PC settings for you guys. If you want to take a look at this, I'm gonna try and move through it as quick as I can. So, starting with system display settings, the first thing you want to do is open up, right click, and hit display settings. So, right click, display settings. And then from here, you're going to go down a little bit to advanced display settings. So, we're going to go ahead and click on this. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you've selected the monitor that you're gaming on. You can go through and you can do this for each of your monitors if you have multiple. The monitor that I game on is this monitor here, Display 2. Check your desktop resolution and active signal resolution. Make sure that those two are the same. And check your refresh rate here. Make sure that your refresh rate is as the highest advertised amount for your monitor that you're currently using. If either of those are listed lower, or if they're incorrect, or they're showing less than what you're advertised for on your monitor, first thing, make sure you have the right cable. DisplayPort cable over HDMI is going to work a little bit better. Then the next thing that you can check, if either of these are off for any of your monitors, you'll right click and go to Nvidia control panel right here. If for some reason Nvidia control panel is not on your right click, you can also just search for it, and it automatically pops up into adjust desktop color settings. You want to go into change resolution, select the monitor in particular that you want to edit, and make sure that you have the native resolution selected underneath PC, and make sure that the refresh rate in here is selected as high as it'll go. If the native resolution or the highest refresh rate possible is not what's advertised for your monitor, then check your cable. Make sure that you have a cable that works well enough. DisplayPort is going to give you higher frames and resolution than an HDMI cable will, and make sure you're plugged into your GPU and not your motherboard on the back of the computer. Then from there, we're going to stay inside of the NVIDIA control panel, adjust desktop color settings. Again, make sure you have the correct monitor selected up here. And then I have my contrast turned up a little bit because the colors on this monitor is a little bit funky. But if you don't notice anything out of the ordinary, leave brightness and contrast at 50% and gamma at 1.0. But the one that you do want to change is digital vibrance. And I actually came in here to lower mine down. So right now I have it set to 85. Ideally, you want to be somewhere between 60 and 70. I'm going to rock with 85. I've had mine turned up a little bit too much lately. I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm going to turn it down. It should help a little bit, smooth some images out. After you get done making any settings changes inside of any of these, make sure you hit apply. So we're going to hit apply. That way it saves it. And then from there, we're going to go into manage 3D settings right up here. Get rid of this out of the background. So from here, if you'd like, you have a couple of options. You can change the globe. You can change all of these settings inside of the global settings, or you can change them to be program specific. So you can go inside of here and you can pick out Call of Duty, the specific game that you want to change. If I personally play a lot of first person shooters, it's kind of the majority of the games that I play, and I prefer performance over the way that things look. So for me, I change these on my global settings. Up to you if you want to go into it specifically by program or on global, but I'll run through these for you real quick. Image scaling, we're going to turn that to off. Ambient occlusion off. Filtering off. FXAA off. Gamma correction, we're going to turn that on. Anti-aliasing mode off. The setting and transparency are going to be locked for you. Background application max frame rate off. CUDA GPUs all. CUDA system fallback policy driver default. DSR factors off. DSR smoothness off. Low latency mode on. Max frame rate off. Some of you, depending on which GPU you're running and how new it is, you'll have an extra setting in here for monitor technology fixed refresh. If that's an option for you, you're going to want to turn that off, but I don't have it. My GPU is not new enough. The MFAA, we're going to turn that off. GDI compatibility auto. Rendering GPU, make sure that that's your GPU that's selected here and not your CPU. If your CPU has GPU capabilities, but make sure your GPU is selected here. Power management mode, prefer maximum performance. Preferred refresh rate, application controlled. Shader cache size, driver default. Texture filtering, there's 4 of these. On, allow, high performance, on. Threaded optimization on, triple buffering off, vertical sync off, virtual reality pre-render frames 1, virtual reality variable rate off, Vulkan OpenGL, that's going to be set to auto. And then when you get done inside of there, if you've made any changes, down in the bottom right of the window here, you'll have an option to apply. Make sure that you hit apply inside of here. That should be good for the NVIDIA settings. You'll be good to go there. The next one, so I'm going to cover a handful of settings inside of Windows for you as well, too. A few things to get you some more performance. So first thing, open up the search bar in your taskbar and start with game mode. And let's make sure that this is turned on. This is going to help you a little bit, optimize things, lower your latency, input latency a little bit as well, too. So game mode on. Then once you're done with that, go back into the search bar. We're going to open up graphics settings. So open this guy up. Hardware accelerated GPU scheduling. We're going to turn that on. Make sure that that is set to on. And then if you have a newer GPU, you'll have an option for variable refresh rate right underneath this as well, too. If that's an option for you, go ahead and turn that off. It's not going to help you out at all. The next one is game bar. So if you use Xbox at all, or you play with friends in an Xbox party from your PC, you'll want to keep game bar. I personally don't. Everything I do is inside of Discord, but game bar automatically runs in the background of your system. It's a separate application. It's different than the game bar settings here. I'll talk about this in a second, but it's a separate application. And if you search game bar, it's going to show up right here underneath best match. If you want to, you can delete it and uninstall it. So I actually uninstalled it from my PC. The only catch is for it is you can't go into add or remove programs. Game bar does not show up inside of here. So what you have to do, and I'm going to put this, I'll put it in the notes for the video, but what you have to do is you're going to open up the PowerShell settings. So you'll hold down on your keyboard, you'll hold down the Windows button and X. And for me, it's actually popping up. There's a little pop-up menu. Actually, you can right-click on your start menu, too. I didn't realize that. So you can right-click on your start menu, and you're going to open up Windows PowerShell Admin. Make sure you open up the admin one. And you're going to get your PowerShell window pop up here. And then I'm going to put this text down in the description for the video so you can just copy and paste it. But you're going to take this text, you're going to paste it right inside of here, and this is going to delete the Xbox game bar or gaming overlay for you because it's native to the system. So put it in here, paste it, hit enter. It'll take like 2 or 3 seconds to process, and frankly, it doesn't even tell you when it's done. It just another command prompt will pop up down here below, and that'll remove it from your system, and you can just close it out. So if you don't have any use for the Xbox game bar, you can go ahead and delete it. It runs in the background all the time. It costs you a handful of frames, but if you're not using Xbox Party Chat, there's no reason for you to have it on your computer. So again, I'll copy and paste that into the description for the video. The next thing is startup apps. So if you open up the search bar again, open up startup apps, and inside of here, you can see all the apps that currently start automatically. You're going to get a handful in here that you really don't want or need. Like my, let's see, like Elgato was running automatically for me. Microsoft Edge was turning on. So was OneDrive. I don't use those. So I had them turned off. Same thing with Xbox. It was automatically starting when I originally had my computer. So I shut off all the extra stuff that I don't need. I'm not exactly sure what these two update things are, but I have them turned on. They don't seem to have too much of an impact on the system. So I've turned those off. Additionally, you can get a little bit of a further look at your startup apps if you hold down Control Alt Delete and open up Task Manager. So you'll select Task Manager inside of here, and there's a little tab up at the top here for startup, and you can see exactly which ones are enabled and disabled. Same thing. I had a couple extra programs inside of here that were showing up as enabled inside of my task manager that were not showing up inside of Windows startup settings. So I went in and I removed those. You can click on them and then hit disable down in the bottom right if it's not something that you use often or something that you don't need. So startup settings, you can go ahead and get rid of that. Next one is the power plan. So this one's kind of important. So if you type in power plan, don't select edit power plan. The second one down right here, it says choose a power plan. You're going to go ahead and select that. It'll pop up this box here. By default, you're set to balanced. You want to select high performance. So make sure you go ahead and select high performance unless you have one of, and I'm going to post them right over here on the right-hand side of the screen. There's 4 AMD Ryzen AMD GPUs that you actually want to select the balanced plan for. Supposedly, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put those on the right or the left-hand side of the screen here while I'm talking and when I edit the video so you can see which one. If one of those 4 GPUs listed over here are yours, you're going to select balanced. If you have an Intel or any other AMD, you're going to select high performance. And then you can go inside of here, click change power plan settings, change advanced settings, and you're going to get this little window that pops up over here. The only one that I change inside of here that seems to have a little bit of a draw on the system, if you go into desktop background settings, slideshow, this is by default set to available. Supposedly if you wanted to have your Windows background be a slideshow, like scrolling pictures, supposedly if it's listed as available, it's always running in the background as a possibility and it's utilizing some CPU space. So you can go ahead and change that to paused. That should be a little bit of a system gain there. Hit apply, hit OK. And then from here, you'll hit save changes and you'll be good to go. So make sure you have high performance selected. Then the next one that I want to tell you guys about. So Discord has a handful of settings that are going to eat away a little bit at your system. So when you're inside of Discord here, you'll select user settings over here on the bottom left-hand side, the cogwheel or gear, as Donnie would like me to say. So you hit user settings. First one, this one right here, voice and video. This portion is specifically for Pat, number 1. If you're ever having issues hearing or talking, come into here and select your input and output device. Make sure that these are not set to default device because it's probably going to be different. Specifically select the actual headset and microphone that you're using for your input and output. That way it's never changing to anything else. Every now and again when Discord pushes an update, they'll change these back to default devices. So if you're having trouble hearing or talking, first place to come and check settings, audio and video, make sure that both of these are selected. And then obviously you can choose your input mode, voice activity or push to talk. Voice activity is an always open mic. Push to talk is a push to talk button. I play on controller, so I really don't want to use push to talk inside of here. Then when you get done with that, you're going to go down to advanced app settings right here, advanced. Developer mode turned off, hardware acceleration turned off. Make sure both of these are turned off. Specifically hardware acceleration. Sometimes this gets turned on by default, but it would be using your GPU to make Discord run smoother. And if you're playing a game like Call of Duty, it's very GPU heavy. So make sure that you have that one set to off. The last one is the game overlay. If you don't care to see who's speaking inside of the game while you're playing, turn the game overlay to off. This is going to cost you a handful of frames. It uses up quite a bit of CPU and a little bit of GPU performance. So make sure that this is set to off right here, enable game overlay. If you really feel the need to, you can turn it on, but it does take a little bit of a performance hit for you. So turn that off if that's not something that you necessarily need. So good to go there. You can go ahead and close out Discord. The next one, this is going to feel a little bit scary, but I promise you the only thing that you're doing here is just changing a handful of settings inside of the game and making sure that your settings stay put. And the nice thing is that these are going to be some added performance settings that you can gain that are not settings that you can change when you fire up the game. So what you're going to do is open up your File Explorer and go to your default documents right here. You might have a couple of options, but the one that you want to open up is just Call of Duty right here. So select Call of Duty, and then you're going to go to Players right here. Okay. Now, from here, all the way down towards, typically they're located at the bottom, you should have 3 files for s.1.0.cod24. And not .m, but 24, and it might say .txt, .txt1, or .txt0, or .txt2 for these 3. Just start with the first one that's up here at the top. When we get done with these settings, we're going to copy and paste them into these other 2 files as well too. Call of Duty runs 3 separate settings files for this, one for Warzone, one for multiplayer, and one for default game settings, or campaign, excuse me. So first one, open up this first one, s.1.0. Make sure that you're selecting this one right here and not the options 3. This is the old one, but s.1.0.cod24 text document or text0 file. I use Notepad+, but you might just use Notepad if you don't have Notepad++. They both work the same. So you'll open that one up. And a few things that we're going to do. So we're going to search. So I'm going to hit Control F for find. And the first one that we're going to search for, let me move this over here so you guys can see what's going on. First one that we're going to search for is corpse. So we're going to find corpse. The corpse limit, we're going to set this one to 0 right here. So make sure that you change this option right here to 0 for corpse limit. So that way corpses, bodies are not laying around on your game. Then we're going to search for blood, and we're going to change a few of these ones. So the first one, limit blood effects. We're going to backspace this and change it to true. So if yours says false, you're just going to backspace true and type in false, and you can hit enter. Then we're going to scroll down a little bit more to when limiting blood effects, the next line down. This one right here, we're going to change the blood limit interval to 1. This might be set pretty high to begin with, but change this to 1. And then the next one is going to be show blood effects. So I just hit find next while searching for blood. Show blood effects right here. We're going to change this to false. Okay. Then the next one we don't have to search for, but it's one line down right here. It says weapons eject brass. This is by default set to true. We're going to change this to false. This just stops your gun from shooting out the empty casings. It just limits a little bit of the on-screen clutter for you, as well as a little bit of a performance hit for this one. So we're going to go back to search, and we're going to search for probe. Hit find next. So right down here, reflection probe relighting 1 to 4. We're going to change this to 1. So it's going to limit that as much as it can. And then we're going to search for clip map, CLIP, all one word. Couple down. We're going to change the static sun shadow. We're going to change this one down to 0 right here. So this one, static sun shadow, clip map resolution. Change that to 0. Next one, this one's pretty important. So we're going to search for heaps, HEAPS. Okay. Now, if you remember in the last video when we were changing the telemetry, so the frames, GPU time, and CPU time that shows up in the top left-hand side of your screen when you're playing Call of Duty, if you're GPU bound, which means that your GPU response time is longer or a higher number than your CPU response time, then you're going to select true for this option. You're going to type in true right here. If you are CPU bound, so if your CPU response time is longer than your GPU response time, then you're going to set this to false right here under heaps. Okay, GPU load heaps. We're going to change that to false if you are CPU bound. Okay, then the next one that we're going to search for here is catmull, CATMULL, all one word. Now, this one, we're going to just change this number to 0 for subdivision level. Change that one to 0. Then the last one that we're going to change in here, this one's going to be render worker count. You can just search render. It should be the first one that shows up, I think. Nope, I lied. Render worker. Nope, wait, how do I find this? Render worker. Render. Where is... I see. Okay, so I had to hit find next about 3 times to get to render. Oh, I'm sorry. It's renderer. R-E-N-D-R. Excuse me. R-E-N-D-E-R-E-R. So if you search for renderer, R-E-N-D-E-R-E-R, for this one inside of here, we're going to change this number right here that you see, and it's going to be based on your CPU. So I found somebody put this little graph together here that I had found on YouTube. And essentially, this is going to tell your system how many cores to activate while using your CPU. So if you're on an Intel CPU, so one of these Intels here, it's going to be your P core count -1. So if you're on an i5, an Intel i5, you have 6 P cores, you're going to put in the number 5 right here under renderer worker count. Okay. If you're on an AMD CPU, you're going to take the number of cores. If you're on an AMD CPU, that's 1 CCD. Right here, you can see this based on find your CPU. I'll show you how to find it in a second. So take your number of cores and deduct 1. If you're on a 2 CCD Ryzen CPU, you're going to take half of your total cores. So if you had 12 cores, you're going to put in 6. If you have 16 cores, you're going to put in 8. And to look for that, you're going to hit Control-Alt-Delete and open up your task manager. So this guy pops up right here. And you'll go to Performance and make sure you select CPU. And you can see right up here in the top right, it's showing me that, make this a little easier, I have an AMD Ryzen 7 5800X, and it's an 8-core processor. It also shows down here, cores 8. So I have a Ryzen 5800X, 8 cores and 1 CCD. So I'm 8 cores -1. So I go into render worker count, and actually I just realized that my number is off. I go into render worker count, change that to 7. Okay, so change that to 7. That's the last setting that you'll update inside of here. When you get done, you're going to go ahead and hit save right up here in the top left, and then select somewhere inside of the screen before you close it out. Hit Control A to select everything inside of here, and then copy it. Right click, copy. Okay. And then from here, you can close this guy out. I'll close out this. And I'm going to paste it into the other 2 S.1.0 COD 24 files. So I'm going to open up this next one. I'm going to hit Control A, right click, paste, and then hit save. Close it out. Same thing with the third one. Open it up. Double click it. Control A. Right click. Paste. Hit the save button and close it out. Yes. Okay. So now I have my settings are saved through all three programs, all three different applications for COD that they use, and I am good to go. So again, I'll show you this one more time, but you'll find your GPU on here. If you're an AMD, one CCD, total cores. So for me, it was 8 minus 1 is 7. Intel, number of P cores, minus 1. Or if you're on a 2 CCD AMD, half of your total cores for that. So that'll be it. Good luck. Happy hunting.